You're listening to the Snob OS podcast, the podcast for Apple snobs. Yo, this is Terrance Gaines, aka Brother Tech.
And this is Nica Montford, aka Tech Savvy Diva.
And welcome back to the Snob OS show, the show for Apple snobs, where we talk all things Apple and then some. We want to welcome you back to another episode. This is episode 317 of the Snob OS show. So we want to thank you for your continued support. As always, I need you to do two things. I need you to listen, watch, rate, and review on Apple, on Spotify, and on YouTube. And if you want to be a Patreon supporter, please go to patreon.com/snoboscast. You can watch the show live, you get the show early, and you get some exclusive content you will not find or hear on this week's show. So definitely go to patreon.com/snoboscast, become a snobist, and show us a little love. Thank you. We definitely want to say thank you for all those people who are showing us love financially and in spirit as well. So having said that, we're going to get into the show. We always start with the lowdown. And basically, this is going to be the WWDC 25 lowdown. And basically, we're going to go talk about all the things that Apple announced at this past week's WWDC keynote. This week is the Worldwide Developer Conference. All Apple developers, anybody that's signed up and has a developer license, can attend virtually or in person. Apple's events catered around towards the software. You know, I'm telling you this like you haven't been listening to the show for these past years, but I'm trying to pretend like if you're the first person, this is the first episode you see. Yeah, know nothing about Apple. So WWDC kicks off with the keynote, where they do their announcement of all of the dope software that they plan on announcing or releasing later this year. So I kind of wanted to get your thoughts about the overall show. You don't necessarily have to go into detail, but just kind of give me your feedback of how you thought the entire show would. I'm assuming you watched the show.
Of course.
All right. So what is your overall thoughts? Is there like a word or a phrase or hopeful? What is your overall thoughts of WWDC 25? Oh boy.
It pretty much kind of fell in line with my expectations. Okay. I knew they were going to do Apple Intelligence first. I knew it was going to be quick. I knew that they were going to keep it light on the details. And that's essentially what they did. They did a very, very quick rundown. They listed all the things and hey, yeah, so we have this thing. And I think I said on our show, I think I said on DTNS, Apple Intelligence is nowhere near where they want it. So I assumed it would go first and it would go quick. And then they did that. And then they jumped right into iOS. And they started, I was surprised that they didn't start off with the naming convention bit, but they started off with Liquid Glass. And it's going to be an interesting way to see how they clean it up. Because, of course, when you're shooting these videos, when you're doing these things, you put everything in the best possible light. You show it in optimal circumstances. And so as soon as the event was over, you know, they were like, hey, all the betas are there. And people rushed out to download them and they rushed out to nitpick. And it just kind of showed how you have your glass screen and how, you know, when you swipe down and you kind of have the control panel, how it looks on top of the regular home screen. If you look at your iPhone now, if you haven't upgraded to the beta, it kind of blurs it. And then you can see the full control panel. And with Liquid Glass, it kind of lays them both on top of it. Okay. So I was interested. So after, again, I've said before, I am an Apple developer, I have an Apple developer account. And after the keynote, they do the platform's State of the Union. So they go in deep and look into kind of the guts
Mhm.
of 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 these things they announced. And of course, they started off with liquid glass. And what I found interesting is, I don't know if anybody uses Photoshop, but you know how in Photoshop you do layers, right? So you
Mhm.
can layer things on top of it, and the order of the layers that determines what's focused
Prominent. Yeah.
prominent and what's kind of in the background. And
Uh-huh.
that's essentially how they do the liquid glass. And they use an example of the weather app. So if
Mhm.
you think of the weather app, you have like the blue background, then you have the cloud, then you have the sun. And so it's based hierarchically.
Mhm.
And so you can kind of see each of the individual elements. They kind of did like a 3D rendering where you could
Mhm.
see each slice. And then they showed you when it's kind of laid on top of each other. So I'm interested to see what changes they're going to make to kind of fix that, everything is kind of jumbled on top of it.
Oh.
And another thing I saw is what looks like the default for the icons is like that white and clear.
Oh, really? That's the
And
default?
I'm assuming because that's the way it was showing.
Mhm.
Hopefully, it's not, because it is. I saw some people talk about accessibility issues, obviously, but then I was like, you can customize it. And because they said that liquid glass works with your tinted, because like I have tinted icons
Mhm.
based on, I use like the eyedropper, and like
Mhm.
I took a color from the
Background of
wallpaper,
yeah.
right, to kind of tint my icon, so it all kind of
Mhm.
looks pretty and matches.
Mhm.
And so I think once you download it, it's going to take your existing home screen
Mhm.
and leave it that way, but you're going to still get that glass feeling, with the background, kind of like the way it looks through. So I'm interested to see how this liquid
Customizable
yeah,
or
how
okay.
customizable it is,
Uh-huh.
and what it's actually going to look like
Mhm.
outside of the ideal scenario that Apple
Mhm.
showed.
Right.
So is it going to look as liquidy glassity with my tinted icons? Like, am
Yeah.
I going to get that same liquid glass feel? And for me, that was probably the liquid glass thing was probably it was the first real thing that came in, and it was
Mhm.
probably my most interested. And
Mhm.
then it came with the naming convention after that, which I think you were right. And when I talked about it on DTNS, it was like it's kind of the same thing with the way they do cars. And I was like, I guess, okay. But what I'm really looking forward to seeing how it when the gold release candidate comes out, the feedback that they're getting from developers
Mhm.
and from beta, well, it's only developer beta users right now, on how to improve and refine the customability, the way you can customize
Mhm.
the way that this liquid glass looks, because that's kind of like, to me, that was like the wow factor of the whole thing, because you got different features kind of similar to what I expected. They were going to have, a bunch of different features, but it really, I won't say it wasn't a lot of features, because it was a lot of features, but it
Mhm.
wasn't anything, if I'm remembering. So I live tweeted the announcement. I can't really think of anything that made me go wow on any of the features. Just kind of like, as I think back now, what we're recording on a Wednesday, so it's been 2 days, and I don't think anything outside of the liquid glass
Mhm.
um, really stuck out to me, outside of them not really saying much about Apple Intelligence, which I
Mhm.
assumed, and
Mhm.
the liquid glass itself. So, um,
So,
yeah.
so you mentioned something about customization, right?
Mhm.
I think Apple or people are starting to see why Apple is so
Rigid.
tight, rigid when it comes to their software, so much so that they really don't want you customizing stuff because of this reason.
Yeah.
When they roll out new features, it is system wide,
Mm-hmm.
and they, being Apple, can't possibly preemptively allow for customization, allow for all the different types
They
of
can't
ways.
account for different
Right.
ways people are going to
People
use it.
customize their
Yeah.
phones, right? Because that's what people love about Android. With Android, you can almost take it down to the atom
Yeah.
and customize your phone. With Apple, they're like, look, trust us, we have the best experience. But
Mm-hmm.
we as in consumers have been fighting Apple, fighting Apple, fighting Apple. Let me do this. Let me do that. Let me do this. Let me do that. I'm gonna change this. I'm gonna change that. Update this. Personalized, right? And Apple, kind of like with that widgets, with the colorful widget thing.
Mm-hmm.
Apple, that was kind of like, to me, almost like one of the few times where Apple was like, all right, fine,
We'll give it
fine,
to you. You can have
fine.
this.
You can
Yeah.
change your colors and you can change this and whatever. Then fast forward to now,
Mm-hmm.
Apple comes out with this liquid glass. And the first thing, not you specifically, but the first thing people said was, how is this going to work if I change the colors of
Mm-hmm.
the widgets and the icons? And what if I, because Apple's like, I told y'all this is the reason, which again,
There's a method to our madness why we
right,
go about things we go about, because we know people and we
right.
know how you're going to try and turn this thing every which way you can.
Right. And the problem with Apple is going to be, what if people say, I don't like liquid glass
Mm,
because it doesn't let me customize and change. Or when I do customize and change things, liquid glass now looks funky, or it doesn't
mhm,
look right, or it whatever the case may be. And Apple can't prepare for all of that. So some of the things that Apple is doing now with the lack of Siri AI, I call it Siri AI because that's what I'm waiting on. I'm not waiting on Apple Intelligence. I'm waiting on Siri AI
the
to
personal assistant that they
the
introduced us to.
exactly the contextual
Yeah,
natural language, learns all my stuff, knows
yeah,
all my stuff, and can spit this stuff back out to me. That's some of the stuff that's the stuff
mhm,
that wowed people the most last year, and as a result is missing from this year's WWDC.
mhm,
I'll talk about it a little bit later, but Apple kind of makes it not an excuse, but they put out the reason for not
mhm.
seeing Siri, because they didn't say, I don't think they said Siri at all at the keynote. If they did, I missed it.
They
If you're
didn't.
listening,
I don't remember hearing it.
right, let me know,
I don't
because
even remember hearing it when they had introduced Apple Intelligence.
what they did was, and it's smart. This is where Apple should have, this keynote should have been last year. Because Apple said in this keynote, with Apple, with Apple Intelligence, and what we know Apple doing now with Apple Intelligence is almost like, hey, we're going to come up with these tools. We're going to integrate some of the functionality to make it a little smarter, right?
Mhm,
With the language with the live translation. So that's one of the Apple Intelligence features
mhm,
that Apple released or announced at this week's keynote, to where you're be on a FaceTime call, you can be in a text message, you can be in a regular, I don't know if a voice memos. I don't know if it's a regular phone call, but I know on FaceTime, if you're talking to somebody with a different language, this live translation will take my English and convert it to whomever I'm speaking to, and
mhm,
they'll be able to read it in a caption, and then they can speak their language. I can read it in a caption, and we can converse normally
mhm.
without having to wait for the translation to happen. It's doing it as we're talking,
Real
right? So
time.
that's the intelligence that Apple is going to start pushing going forward.
Mhm,
In addition to the notification summaries, that's Apple Intelligence. All that is Apple Intelligence, but it ain't the Siri Apple Intelligence that they are that ChatGPT and Claude and all these other ones have. That you have a conversation, you spit out some things, give out some commands, and it creates or whatever. They try to do it with the Genmoji stuff. Nobody cares. You know, people like me were waiting on Apple to say, all right, we messed it up, But this time it's going to be different because dot, 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 dot. And Apple pretty much said, we're going to shelve. We're not going to shelve it, but we want to make sure we get it right. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But I wanted to go in and talk about this unified user experience because I thought that was important, because Apple is starting to even more so blur the lines between using iOS, using iPad OS, Watch OS, Mac OS, TV OS. The naming convention, like Nica mentioned, we rumored about it, they confirmed it. Everything is going to be per year. So this year it's going to be iOS, iPad OS, Watch OS, Mac OS, TV OS, Vision OS 26 to match with the upcoming year, that the majority of the operating system is going to be, we're going to use it the most in 2026.
Yeah.
So they call it iOS 2026, even though they're going to announce it later this fall. So that's one way they kind of unified the operating systems. Another way they did it, like Nica mentioned, via the liquid glass. Those same type of airy, roomy, the like you said, the what do you call it? Superimposed, I guess is a lack of the different layers and a different clarity. That is, you'll find that in all the operating systems, even on Watch OS.
Yep.
Right. So I think I appreciate that Apple's like, all right, let's blur the lines to where the only thing that's going to matter is what you're comfortable with using. If you're comfortable with using a Mac, you can use your Mac all day long and you'll get all of the iPhone alerts. You get all of the notifications. You'll get be able to do all the shortcuts, all the things that you would naturally do on an iPad. On a Mac, or on an iPhone rather, you'll be able to do on a Mac. Same thing with an iPad. If you're used to, doing some sort of calculation or whatever, the same stuff you can do it same stuff you can do on Mac, you can do it on a iPad, so on and so forth. So I thought that was dope. Again, I am a naturalist, I guess. Not a naturalist. What's the word when you don't really make any changes? Purist. That's the word. I'm a purist when it comes to customization. I really don't do all that much customization to my phone or my devices, because I know that there's going to be something at Apple, or I feel like Apple's, that's going to mess with.
They're going to make a change and it's going to break all that time you spent customizing it.
Or I'm going to get used to doing things one way and then have to relearn it. So that's why I really don't mess with third-party mail apps. I use the mail app. I don't mess with third-party to-do task lists. I use the reminders app, so on and so forth, because I want to be able to take advantage of all the functionality. And I think Apple did a good job with this unified experience to push the idea that, the things that you always going to be able to do, you're always going to be able to do them. Now you'll be able to do them and it'll feel the same on the different devices, right?
Yeah.
So that was that. Again, like I mentioned in naming conventions, there were some dope features that Apple did announce. Like I mentioned, the live translation was stuck out to me. The group chat features that Apple added, they're really trying to keep up with some of these other group chats, namely WhatsApp.
Yeah.
And WhatsApp, if you have a group, you can change the background of the group. So Apple pushed that out as well. So now if you create a group message, a group chat within messages, you can change the background. Another one of the cool things, if you are in a group chat and most people are trying to talk or type at the same time, there's a little, it's intelligent tells you, who's going to get there first, basically, right? So you're not wondering who's talking right now. So that was a cool feature. One of the other cool features that I thought was cool was the fact that the phone screening, the phone call assist. So it'll do a better job of screening phone calls and text messages. In addition to that, they've got a new on hold feature to where if I call the DMV and they put me on hold, as soon as the phone recognizes the on hold music, it'll give me a message and say, hey, let us notify you when the person picks up the phone. And you can, if you say yes, you can put the phone in the pocket. You can use the other function of the phone, do whatever, and not have to worry about accidentally hanging up, not worry about missing the phone call because you're doing something else, right? It'll notify you that the phone, you're not on hold anymore, and you switch back over and answer. So I thought that was cool. Let me see what was some other.
I liked the poll feature, because a lot of times when you're in group chats, you're making decisions, whether it be a trip, whether it be dinner, or
Right.
whatever. And it's like,
Yep.
what day can you do? What time can you do?
Yep.
Let's just throw it in a poll, and then whichever gets the most
And I
wins.
forgot to mention that, and I was going to forget to mention that, but it's so something that I need to use right now because me and my family have a group chat. You
Mhm,
know, me and my wife and my kids. And
mhm.
every Friday, every Saturday, what y'all want to eat? I want to eat here. I want to eat here. I want to eat. And we're back and forth, back and forth. So I'm like,
Yeah.
forget it. We're all eating at one place because I got to go pick it up. So now with the poll thing, I put the poll out. Are we eating here? Are we eating here, here, or here? Those are only options.
Majority wins.
Right. And I bring that up because that's something personal to me, right?
Yeah.
Versus, something I can actually use versus, oh, that's cool. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say a lot of the features are real life changes that make things easier. And I've said it before and I'll continue to ring it. I want my tech to make things that I normally have to do anyway, make them
Mhm.
easier. And
Mhm.
they aren't the flashy, sexy type things, that we think of, but it's real life, everyday things that we all use that we don't
Mhm.
necessarily really think of as an issue until we have to do it. And
Right.
now bringing in these types of things, it makes it easier to
Mhm.
manage.
Mhm.
And that's probably the biggest takeaway from this whole event is
Mhm.
that it's taking simple everyday tasks that aren't so simple and using software, using
Mhm.
technology to make it easier for us to navigate. We're dealing with so much crap, and if you could take something as deciding what time to be somewhere, what
Mhm.
you want to eat, to do it, throw it in a quick little poll and something you were already going to type out anyway. And
Mhm.
instead of having an open ended question, say, okay, these are your options, pick one.
Mhm. Yep, absolutely. One of the other features that I thought was cool, similar to how if you go to a lot of Shopify websites,
Hmm.
Shopify actually has an app called Shop Pay to
Hmm.
where if it recognizes orders or purchases that you've made on Shopify websites, or if you give it access to your email, it finds like order information or shipping and tracking information. It'll put all that in the shop app and you can
Hmm.
kind of monitor when all the things you purchase, when they'll hit your house, whether you doesn't matter where you purchase them from. Well, Apple didn't gank that idea. That's one of the cool things. And this is part of Apple intelligence, right? This is the Apple. These type of features are what I thought of when I think of Apple intelligence. Like you mentioned, makes things a little bit easier, right? So this new feature is called orders, to where in your Apple Wallet, if you made a purchase with any of your credit cards in your Apple Wallet, and Apple recognizes shipping information, tracking information, order status updates, it'll surface that all of those in the wallet app. So you don't have to go to your email, you don't have to go fishing for a tracking number, you don't have to, do any of that. You can open up your wallet, the wallet app, and then it's going to have that feature. So that stuff like that, and
Hmm.
then like the places in the maps, like if you've been Apple knows based on
They're
where
already
you
tracking wherever you go.
exactly. So what they can do is if you don't remember where you went, you can go back into the Maps app and look at the places you visited. That'll be I think that's the title of it. And you
Yeah.
can click that and it'll go back and say, okay, you stopped here, you went here, this and that, and then you can share that or whatever the case may be. So
And
go
also
ahead.
helping with your commute. That was the other thing. So
Hmm.
it knows, people are creature of habit. You go home, you go to work, you go to school, you go to Pilates every Thursday. It
Hmm.
knows your routine because it's tracking you because
Hmm.
that's what it does. And it can predict based on the day and the time where you're likely to go next and
Hmm.
to give you the best option to commute from whether you're leaving work, going to Pilates, or
Hmm.
leaving Pilates, going to pick up kid from soccer, whatever it is, it's putting again, making things you were already going to do anyway, is giving you the commute or the travel time that's going to be the most efficient, the least traffic, and it's already pre-populating it for you because it knows where you're going.
Mhm. Yep, yep. So those are like the major features from iOS. I think the other one, group, with the Messages app, you can, if you're splitting the tab, you can actually use Apple Cash rather, Apple Cash in a group chat, and you can put up the how much it is, and everybody can pay you individually. So I thought that was another cool
Yeah.
thing. So it sounds like you had something else you wanted
I
to.
had one more thing.
Um,
For wallet.
mhm.
If any of you travel and you get your boarding pass, usually whatever your boarding pass says when you move it to your wallet,
Mhm.
to the wallet,
Mhm.
that's what it is. That gate is staying there.
Mhm.
E12. Even though your gates change 5 different times, it's just gonna show E12.
Or don't show up at all. There's been times I've been
Right.
looking at it and I'm all right, where's the gate?
Where it's supposed
Where's
to
the
go.
gate? And
Right.
luckily I had my paper boarding pass or and then I remember. Yep.
Or go back to for me, the Delta app. Well,
Mm.
now the boarding passes that you save to your wallet are going to update when changes happen,
Mhm.
because I can't remember how many times, people make jokes about it, but whenever I get to the airport, before I go to the lounge,
You
before I
gotta
do
go to the gate.
anything,
You gotta see the
I
gate. You
go
gotta
and
touch it.
check the gate. I
Mhm.
look at it. I got to put eyes on it to make
Mhm.
sure that that's where I'm supposed to be. But I've done that in the past, and then they've changed the gate
Let me
after
tell
I've
you.
checked.
Let me tell you. I have been to the gate, sat at the gate, put my AirPods in, turned on noise cancellation, and
Waiting
missed the fact
to
that they
change.
announced that the gate has changed.
Yeah.
And like for real. And then luckily, I knew somebody that worked at the airline.
Uh huh.
And it was at Delta, since Delta's a major hub. I happen to
Hmm.
know somebody at the Delta hub, and I went
Hmm.
down and talked to him. I was like, "Yo, I need to get my flight changed." And she's like, "How you miss your flight?" I was like, "You don't want to know." So then I told her. She looked at me, chuckled, luckily put me on another flight that it
Uh,
wasn't 3 days away and didn't
yeah.
cost me an extra arm and a leg. But
Right.
yes, I'm co-signing that fact that I will appreciate when Apple updates the gates, because if they would have did that, I'd have got a notification on my
You got a
phone,
notification, gate change.
right? And I got up and walked off.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm happy with that. And I'm even though you can't fly with it, which I'm not quite sure why they're adding it unless they're future proofing it,
The digital
where you can
ID.
base your basically your passport, your
Mhm.
digital ID, which is basically your passport. So you have your driver's license, and now you can add this digital ID, which is supposed to be like the equivalent to your passport.
Okay.
So
All right. We
I
shall
think it's future
see.
proofing in that.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't really use so much. I don't use the digital wallet or digital driver's license now, so much so that I think either I updated or something, and it was like, you don't need this,
Mhm.
and then uninstalled it. And then I went to go look for it one day. I was like, where's my digital
I think
driver's license?
I
And I had
think
to
it's
re-put it back in.
proofing because we're not there yet, but we're coming. It's coming
Hmm.
to that. And as many early adopters as they can get, I
Hmm.
think it will help with um people trying to rush you at the same time. So it's
Hmm.
clogging up the pipeline, taking extra long to get. So I think they're trying to get people on it before it's time to actually use it. So once actually time for it to be implemented and used as the gold source of IDs, they'll have a bunch of people already and won't have to work to put so many more people in. They'll have enough people already in there that
Hmm.
hopefully it won't be as cumbersome. So
Well, they need to figure out how people like me who are in there early can actually use it, so you can get the feedback so you can improve it.
right.
I need to use it so you can improve it, right?
Right.
So that was the main stuff in iOS. There's a couple other features announced in all the other OSs. Probably the main one for Watch OS was the Workout Buddy, and
Mhm.
basically it knows your pace, it knows
Uh-huh.
your effort, and in addition to just showing you notifications, it'll actually AI or a generated voice will kind of give you a pep talk. It's like, hey, your pace is 2 seconds
Slipping.
faster
Yeah.
than the previous try doing this. Almost like a little coach. So
Mhm.
I think that was the main thing for WatchOS. And then they have a new flick gesture to where if you're
Wrist
getting a
flick.
Yeah, yeah. If you get what is it? A message. What is the I
So
forget
basically,
the
like
main
a
thing.
when you get a notification, you can do
Yeah,
the
yeah.
wrist flick to interact with any of those types of
Got it. Got
um,
it.
notifications.
Yeah, notifications are now easier to manage with a simple wrist flick gesture. When a user raises their wrist to check a notification but isn't ready to respond, they can quickly turn their wrist over and back to dismiss the notification. So if somebody's reaching out to you or whatever, and you read it but you don't want to do it, you kind of flick your wrist and it'll remove the notification. So those are the
Yep.
main two things for iOS. For iPad OS, I really wasn't all that jazzed about iPad OS.
Mm-mm.
But the only one I wanted to highlight in macOS was the fact that you can do a lot more from Spotlight search. I
Mm.
use Spotlight search all the time because all I'm doing is open up Spotlight search, typing in the app, typing in whatever, and it goes and it takes me to that spot.
Yeah.
What Spotlight search now, I can use shortcuts and short keys. Like if I want to send Nica a text message saying, "Hey, I'm running late on this week's show," I don't have to open up the messages app. I don't have to go get my phone. If I'm typing on my Mac, I can open up Spotlight Search and put in the short key SM. And
Mm.
SM in Apple's example stood for short message, like text message. And then it put in that string, and then I can even type in the message, and then I can type to who I want to send it to. So I say SM, I'm going to be 5 minutes late to Nica send, and it'll send that text message off to Nica, and I didn't have to do anything. And it
Yeah.
go ahead. Go ahead.
It's called quick keys. And when
Quick
I saw
keys.
them doing
Yeah.
this, the first thing that popped into my mind is I don't know if I said this on the show last week or if I mentioned it. What the new when people say I'm ATL, most
Mhm.
people think that means I'm so ATL, I'm so Atlanta. No,
Mhm.
it means about that life. And the
Mhm.
way these new kids keep making up acronyms to
Mhm.
mean things, I was like,
Yeah.
finally, we can make up acronyms that
Yeah.
actually mean something, that
Right, right.
actually do something, and it
Mhm.
just means it for me. It
Right.
doesn't mean it for everybody. Your SM and my SM might do two different things, and that's
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
So,
The SM I'm thinking of does something totally different than Apple technology.
right. So in your example, short message. So it's one of
Mhm.
those things where it might be short message for me, it might be store meat, I don't know,
Mhm.
for somebody else. So it's one of those
Mhm.
things where you're finally able to customize it. It takes a little effort on the front end, but you're
Mhm.
going to be doing that anyway.
And it
So
utilizes shortcuts. And
right.
so I would highly advise you
Yes.
just learn some shortcuts, man.
Yeah.
I'm not a shortcut pro, but I can quickly start to think about some of the things that I routinely do in my, like for instance for this show. I've got a shortcut called "It's Showtime."
Mm,
And basically, when it's showtime, it turns off my main lights, it turns on my little podcast lights, and it turns on my little leg light. I don't have it turned on now because
mm,
I was showing my Pacers thing on top of it, and I want the house to burn down because I got the light on. But this it's showtime thing when it, and it also turns on my do not disturb.
mm.
So if I'm getting a phone call or message, do not disturb, and it'll do all these things, right?
Yeah.
So that's just like one little thing for me personally that I
Yeah.
do. But shortcuts, they're easy to do. People think it's coding. It's not really coding. It's like you're dragging and dropping, you're selecting
It's
lists.
automation is what it is.
It's exactly what it is automation. So I'm not a big person on AI, but I am pretty big on automation. I like
Yeah.
to things to automate that at a
Yeah.
certain time of day, whatever, things just happen,
Yeah.
right? So all the way around the world to say Apple integrating shortcuts via quick keys into Mac is something that I would have thought they would do for the iPhone, but the fact that they're doing it for a Mac
Yeah.
goes back to the whole unified experience. It doesn't matter what device you're on, you can get the job done, you
Yeah.
know. So I think that's it of all the major features of all the different OSs. Like I said, iPad OS had some stuff like they're fixing how you pin um, screens to the iPad. For instance, you can do split screens, more functionality, more fluidity.
I think they're
And
doing something with Stage Manager. They're trying to make it work.
yeah, 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 yeah. I wasn't all that impressed
No.
with the iPad news, but it was they again with that whole. It'll be interesting to see how liquid glass looks on an iPad because you can see
Yes.
it in its full glory on a iPhone, but there's still kind of a small screen versus
Yep.
iPads, typically just glass.
Yeah.
Definitely be interesting to see how that liquid glass stuff uses with iPad OS 26.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much it. The last thing I wanted to hit on in the lowdown was again, we talked about it before, but at the top, the lack of Siri Apple Intelligence. And I wanted to ask you, is that refreshing that Apple pretty much said, and let me just read these quotes here.
Okay.
This is from Craig Federici. He says, look, we don't want to disappoint customers. This is, no, I'll take it back. This is Wozniak. I think that's his name. What's that guy's name? Oh, Greg. Yes, let me get it together. Senior Vice President of Worldwide Marketing, Greg Josniak. Basically, he says, look, we don't want to disappoint customers. We never do. But it would have been more disappointing to ship something that didn't hit our quality standard, that had an error rate that we felt was unacceptable. So we made what we thought was the best decision. I'd make it again. Again, that decision being to exclude any sort of updates, any sort of notifications, any sort of signal to us that
Hmm.
Apple is still hard at work on making this Siri thing. So I don't want to say they shelved it, but
Hmm.
basically they said at this point in time, it makes no sense for us to put something out that doesn't work. Right. So then Joanna Stern, who is the tech journalist over at Wall Street Journal asked why Apple, with all of its resources, couldn't make Siri Apple Intelligence work. And the
Hmm.
response was when it comes to automating capabilities on devices in a reliable way, no one's really doing it right now. We wanted to be first. We wanted to do it best. While the company had very promising early results and working initial versions, the team came to feel that this just doesn't work reliably enough to be an Apple product. So having said that,
Hmm.
and then the kind of miscues from last
Hmm.
year when they announced all this cool things Siri will be
Hmm.
able to do, to this year's event where they were kind of like, don't worry, you never, yeah, Jedi
Hmm.
mind trick. We didn't announce Siri Apple Intelligence last year. All we did was this regular stuff, right?
Hmm.
Having read those quotes that came from, I don't know if they came before or after the keynote,
Hmm.
having listened to those notes, is it refreshing that Apple decided to pull back on Siri, or is it concerning that, like Apple, one of the most valuable, most influential companies in the world, cannot tie down intelligence the way they want to do it?
Hmm.
Is it
So,
yeah, go ahead.
so I'll say this first with similar to what I said at the top of the segment about them essentially glossing over Apple Intelligence. It's the same type of mindset with Siri because at this point in time, I think they are rethinking Apple Intelligence.
Okay.
And what good would it do to put out something, use the resources, whether it be people, technology? Why put this is where you come in and you have to make these executive type decisions of what makes sense.
Mhm.
We already know that Apple Intelligence is not where we want it to be. And
Right.
we're working through those changes. We're working
Mhm.
through what that looks like, how we want it to work. They may scrap 50% of this and just go back to the drawing board. So why do that? Why put out an update to Siri when
Mhm.
what is going to be backing Siri, which is Apple Intelligence, you're redoing it? It makes no sense to
Right.
put in that effort and time into Siri when you know the basis of Siri is
Mhm.
getting an overhaul. So it may seem they definitely took a hit because people are asking, well, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that?
Mhm.
It's all strategic alignment. That's one of the things when you're coming up with a roadmap of how you want a specific product to go. You have to not only look at the trajectory of that product, you have to look at the trajectory and the impacts. downstream to other products that rely on it. So it made no sense for them to do an update to Siri when they just glossed over Apple Intelligence, because we know that Apple Intelligence isn't where they want it to be. And
Right.
so it's a complete waste of money, time, and effort to put
Hmm.
out something that in 6 months to a year is going to be completely irrelevant. So
Right.
that's kind of point one. Point two is it's really easy for us as consumers to say, well, you got you got $3 trillion market cap, you got the smartest people in the world, you got all the resources in the world. Why can't you do it? Because it's hard. It's really, really hard. And I've worked on projects and things where you spend months and months and months just in the muck trying to make this thing work. And then you have to say, you know what? It's a wash. We're gonna have to
Hmm.
scrap this,
Hmm.
and we're gonna have to go back to the drawing board and start all over. And
Right.
that is just the natural cadence when you come to software development. You can have a plan, you can have everything laid out so pretty, have all your charts, have all your graphs, have all the buy-in from everybody. And then you start to build it, and it's like, this is not good. This is
Yeah.
messed up.
Right.
And so rather than say, you have the talent, you have the resources, why can't you do it? That's what it boils down to. You do have the talent, you do have the resources, and you invest them. And when you invest them and you see that it still doesn't work, you have
Hmm.
to make that decision to take the hit of people like, why you ain't put it out? Why it ain't this? Why it ain't that? Because it's not to the standard that we want. And we can put it out, and
Hmm.
then you're still gonna complain, this is messed
Yeah.
up, I
Yeah.
don't like the way this look, why they did it this way. And
Yeah.
so it's one of those things where you can't really win or lose. And the only way you can win is to have the whole team's buy-in,
Right.
complete buy-in on what you're delivering. There are so many times I have been working on products, and you go down to the list of stakeholders, yes or no. Is it a yes? Is it a no? Is it a yes or is it a no? And when those no's start rolling in, it's like, okay, you know what? We're going to let everybody, weigh in, but we already know that this isn't going to work. We're going to have to go and do something else. And again, that's just the nature of software development. Nobody likes to talk about that part because
Yeah.
we all want all these great things. We all want
Hmm.
them fast. You conceptualize all these amazing things. We can do this, we can do that. We have this, we have that. We have the people, we have the research, we have all these things. And then when you get knee deep into building, it's like, ooh, girl, this is a
Yeah.
hot mess. So that's really, to me, what I take away from this is the fact that it wasn't good enough.
Right.
And they had to make the decision to say, you know what, we're going to pull back and try again and not give you something that's not
Yeah.
up to our standards and that you're going to bitch about anyway. So, no.
Yeah, I feel the same way, but I think Apple's moving too fast. I think with the Vision Pro, now with the Siri intelligence, there was something else. There was a third thing I wanted to highlight recent years to where Apple announced it and was like, yeah, you know what? Never mind. I can't remember what it
Hmm.
is. But anyway, I think Apple is responding to the pressure from the market,
They're
not just
reacting.
yeah, the reacting, not just end users. I'm talking about the market
Yes.
share, the stock market.
What everybody else is doing.
Right, right. And I think Apple, they stepped out of themselves for a second because Apple's always been, we ain't gonna be first, but we're gonna be best,
Yeah.
right? And I think with the crazy, in my opinion, unmeasured speed at which people are developing, creating, and we're utilizing I think Apple last year, 2 years ago, was like, "Oh, we can't,
Not do
w-
anything anymore.
what? Not anymore. We can't wait to
Yeah.
do anything anymore." They
Right.
were working on it, working on it, working on it, working on it, and then they felt that pressure and was
We
like,
have to
"Okay,
give the people something.
we got to put something out." So that's what
Yeah.
happened last year's
Yeah.
WWDC, which in reality, what I believe has happened. Apple is an excellent hardware company.
Hmm.
They are really, really trying to also be a software company. And the recent fails, for the most part, have been software related, right?
Hmm.
I think Apple And you could tell, and now looking back,
Mm-hmm.
it makes sense as to why they said you got to have a new phone in order to use Apple Intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Because the only way Siri Apple Intelligence, Siri AI was going to work is on a newer phone. And
Mm-hmm.
even then, they couldn't account for, like you said, all the errors and all the potential problems that was going to cause, because Apple is so gung ho on safety and data privacy that in order for it to work right, they have to do it the same way right now. I ain't saying
Mm-hmm.
later, but right now they have to do it the same way everybody else is doing it. And it's in the cloud.
Yeah.
You go to the cloud and get stuff, you get stuff back from the cloud. Chat GPT, Claude, all of them. You send something up to the cloud, you send it back. And that's how you get the information. That's how you get the prompts, all the things. Apple wasn't doing that. Apple was like, the stuff is coming from your phone.
Yeah.
You're sending the request to the phone, and the
Mm-hmm.
phone is sending stuff back. It ain't sending through the phone and then going to the cloud. They're using the cloud for some over heavy stuff, but most of the stuff is coming from a phone. And
Yeah.
Apple was like, we can't get this to work on older phones. So we got to scrap the old phone. So you got to get a new phone to do it. And then they couldn't even account for the different people having everything on their phones. So it's
Yeah.
like, we can't get this to work the same way over all of the phones.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
was going to cause a major problem, because it wasn't going to, it worked perfect for me, but it may
Mm-hmm.
work totally different from Nica, because we're different. We got
Yeah.
different data. We connect to the internet different ways. We use the internet different ways. And Apple couldn't account for all that.
Yeah.
And then they figured it out 3/4 of the way into their announcement last year,
Yeah.
and was like, we can't push this out if it's not going to work the same way on all the devices.
Right.
So we got
And
to
I
scrap
think,
it. We
yeah,
got we got to rethink it, not scrap. We got to rethink it.
and I think Apple lost the plot
Hmm.
and they lost themselves in this,
Hmm.
because one of the key things is with your chat GPTs, with your Geminis, you're using inputs from a uh, textual input manner. And that's not how Apple does it.
Hmm.
They are a hardware company that uses software. And
Hmm.
it's one of those things where the way that Chat GPT does it, the way that Anthropic does it, the way that Amazon does it, the way that Google does it, it's not going to be a one-to-one same
Hmm.
for the way, because Apple does everything in-house. When you have Androids, you can have different types of hardware,
Hmm.
but it's all one OS. And that's why I say I think Apple lost a plot and they lost themselves. They were trying to match or keep up with companies, with software that isn't their mirror, that
Hmm.
isn't in line with what they're doing. So trying to keep up with the Joneses was not going to work for Apple, because that's just innately, that's not how their ecosystem is built. And you're trying to rush to compete and put something out there because you have all these people talking crap about you. Well, what does Apple do? And when is their AI? And they rushed it,
Hmm.
but it wasn't them. And I think what stage we're at with Apple now is Apple is getting back to being Apple, and they're not chasing all of these other people. And they see what happens when they try to chase other people who their technology may be great, it works for them, it's excellent for them, but it won't work for Apple. Apple has to do their own thing, their
Hmm.
own way, and not be so concerned
Wade.
about what their competitors are doing.
Hmm.
And had they had this mindset last year when they
Hmm.
announced Apple Intelligence, it wouldn't have been, there would be some backlash. It was like, when they're going to do something. But if they had waited from last year and
Hmm.
did this product release the way they wanted to, the release this year
Hmm.
probably would have been phenomenal, and it
And
probably would have been what they expected. But now they're having to backtrack and rework a bunch of stuff just to kind of get back to the status quo. And now you have all those people, well, they broke it, they didn't do it right, they got to go back and fix it. Had they just stuck to their ethos and done it the way that they typically do it this year with this iOS, we'd be in a lot better situation, I think.
And the fact that they used Apple Intelligence to sell the phone.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee you a lot of people went out there and said, I need to get the latest phone so I can
Mm-hmm.
have the latest features. And
Mm-hmm.
when they bought the latest phone and the latest
Yeah.
features didn't come, that's all she wrote.
Right.
So
Yeah.
definitely,
Absolutely.
they definitely fumbled. Again, like I mentioned, this should have been WWDC 24. And then whatever's coming for WWDC 26
Mm.
should be Apple's like, all right,
We're
now I think
here.
we're
We've
ready.
arrived. This is our
If
baby.
if
Yeah.
they even make it that far. So
Yeah.
I think this was this whole WWDC was Apple's event to say, all right, we was tripping.
We messed up.
We was
Our
tripping.
bad.
We was tripping. You were gonna come on back down to what we know
Yeah.
and do these little incremental
Yeah.
updates. Keep selling these phones, keep selling these subscriptions, and keep it moving.
And once they get it right, the people who were naysayers, who weren't
People
on
gonna still
board,
complain
they're
though.
going to come running. They're still obviously going to complain, because it's not, if they don't complain with Apple, then the world literally is ended. But it's one of those things where when people see what it's supposed to be, they'll be like, oh, okay, I can get on
We'll
board with
see.
that.
Apple's wearing that favor thin, Jack, because
Yeah,
people
they
you on
are.
the clock. Even with
Yeah.
me, I'm not an apologist, but it's just like, Apple's got it. Now I'm like, I hope
Mm,
Apple's got it.
yeah.
All right. So that's going to do it for the lowdown. We're going to move into second string. Speaking of AI not working, I read this article and it made me think about all of the people out there who have jumped on this AI train
Hmm.
without first learning how to create. We'll talk about creatives, right? If I am a content creator, right, and I've got a uh, Instagram page or profile or whatever the case may be, and I want to get more users, more followers, the way you do that is put up more content. The more
Hmm.
content, the more eyeballs, yada, yada, yada. So, what I'm seeing creators do is instead of learning how the tricks of the trade to get the right fonts and to get the right captions and to get the right whatever the case may be or the right clip, they are automatically defaulting, not not adding features or adding functionality as a default. They're utilizing AI. So let's just say we record this podcast. And normally what we do is we go through and manually edit stuff, manually edit. And then we come across a tool that says, oh, AI can cut in half the time it takes to edit a podcast down. I'd be like, oh,
Hmm.
that's interesting. But I've already done 316 episodes of editing video to where if I then utilize this service and I'm like, oh, it's cool. And it creates 5 or 10 or 12 episodes and then the joint break
Hmm.
or it goes down,
Hmm.
I know how to say, oh, I guess I got to do it manually and go back in there and do it the long, slow way, but
Hmm.
still get a product out.
Right.
What people are doing is they're defaulting to AI without first learning how to
Knowing how
do
to do it themselves.
so. Fast forward to this issue or fast forward to this story. Um, June 10th, ChatGPT went down for an outage. So imagine you being a creator
Hmm.
that has to put up 5 or 10 or 12 or however, whatever the magic number is for
Hmm.
social media content to stay relevant, right? To keep
Hmm.
people following, liking, subscribing, whatever the case may be. You got to put up 10 pieces of content.
Hmm.
June 10th comes around, ChatGPT or whatever is down, and you used ChatGPT to create all your captions
Hmm.
for your videos. Now you're scrambling. You're either scrambling to figure out how to now do it the old way, or you just stuck and you're waiting and you're begging and you're pleading and you're refreshing, hoping that Chat GPT or whatever AI doesn't go down. So I just wanted to
Hmm.
bring this story up to since you are a major in development and you're pretty sure you got to include AI one way or another. How do you feel about a lot of these creators that are defaulting to AI versus learning how to do your whatever skill
Hmm.
job task
Hmm.
manually and then utilizing AI as a tool to assist.
Right.
How do you feel about that?
And it's not just creatives, it's software engineers as well, because
Mhm,
they're a whole new wave of developers and software engineers who only know how to create apps
mhm,
from prompts. They don't know the basics of creating an app from scratch,
mhm,
and they don't know the basics of debugging and figuring out. They're used to something else doing it for them. Now,
mhm,
while those things are helpful and useful, especially to people who learned how to do it the old way,
mhm,
it makes, for people like me, it makes it easier. I was like, oh my God, this is brilliant. I've already done all this, and this can tell me what I did wrong. It can explain this error, and I can go in and fix it. Again, people now in the age of social media, you have your TikToks, you have your Instagrams, short attention span, the same way
mhm,
that kids and not just kids anymore, adults don't know how to write cursive, don't know how to write a basic structure of an essay, or having to say, oh, I have to write a whole page essay. Like, who does that? From
mhm,
kids complain to professors, I can't do my assignment because ChatGPT is down.
mhm,
Is those types of things where my mom always says each generation gets weaker and wiser. So they're wiser in having access to these tools, but they're weaker in not being able to understand fundamentally how they work.
mhm,
And all it's doing, honestly, is creating a generation of people who rely
mhm,
on outside influences
mhm,
to create anything. And that goes for people in content creation. You know, everything is curated the exact same way. No one has an original thought. They're building off someone else. When you go and look at people's looks, outfits, makeups, it's all the same thing. It's
right.
no originality behind it
Mhm,
because people have gotten so used to being spoon fed
mhm,
everything that they lack some of the critical thinking it takes to create some of these things. I'm sure you remember, I remember we had encyclopedias. We
uh-huh.
had to
You
go
gotta go
and
look it up.
research. You got to look it up. Even in the age of the internet, when we had to look things up, you had to cite things. Now you don't
Mhm.
even really have to cite where you're
You
getting
ain't
your
even gotta go
information
find the
from.
site.
Right. And it's one of those things where it's just you just type it, and it's like, the microwave generation, what they call the microwave generation back in the day. This is truly the microwave generation now. They want to put in something completely undone, press a couple buttons, and in 5 minutes have exactly what they want. So it's
My
one of those things where it's doing a disservice to, I wouldn't even put it just on the younger generation. It's adults, I mean grown folks as well, who are willing to take these shortcuts and not make the effort to understand how this stuff works. Because I'll be honest, when the robots come and take over, like, you're not gonna know how to do anything.
mhm.
And the robots are not gonna help you because they're gonna be revolting.
Right.
So it's one of those things where, you know, I know it's individually based now, obviously, but I really suggest for people who have kids and for yourself, some of the things that you're doing, yeah, go ahead. You know how to do it on ChatGPT or the Quickware, whatever. Take the time to at least learn the basics of
Mhm.
how to do it. So when ChatGPT goes down, when Claude goes down, when Gemini goes down, when whatever goes down, the internet goes down, because we are still, got my tinfoil hat on. We are still a keystroke away from some foreign entity completely putting us in the dark. And if you don't know how to, do some of the basic things, if you think about back to writing checks or back to filling out documents by hand,
Mhm.
there may come a time when we have to do that. I hope not, because it would be a disaster. But
Mhm.
just having the reassurance to know that if all this stuff goes to hell tomorrow, you know that you'd still be able to survive and move forward and be able to get stuff done. Right
Well, one
now,
thing
I don't think we can say that for a lot of people.
well, my thing is, are you a creator if you ain't creating nothing? Right?
Words don't
because
mean things anymore to people.
every
I
every
swear.
everybody wants to be a creator,
Mhm.
but if you are quickly running to the internet to find your content and find a
Mhm.
clip, and then you clip the clip, and then you add some captions, or
Yeah.
then the thing I hate, you put up a video.
Those side by sides is people just
Not
laughing
side
at
by
it.
side,
Okay.
the small head. Your head's over here, and I'm watching you watch
Watch
another
somebody
video,
else
right? And you ain't
and
added
respond to that.
nothing. You ain't added nothing to the conversation. You didn't
Just giggling.
interject and say this is important. Make sure you listen to this part because this is what
Yeah.
I was talking about with the. Nope, they just sitting there like this, and what they're doing is they are taking that same format and
Mhm.
they done figured out a template, and all they're doing is just automatic automating that template. My question is, you call yourself a content creator, are
But
you
are
really a
you?
content creator if you ain't creating nothing? Like if you've got this long video and all you're doing is uploading your video to a link or a website, and it automatically shapes it for 16 by 9, and it adds the captions, and it
Mhm.
adds the emojis, and it adds this and that and the third, and it does all this, and you've never once
Mhm.
never once opened up a video editing piece of software
Mhm.
and manually went through and cut stuff. Are you really a creator? I don't know. I'm pretty
I
sure those
don't think
people out
so.
there, Matt, the content creators probably listen to this and be like, well, I'm not saying you can't get no money. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, are you a creator if you're not creating? And what are you actually creating? Or
They're
did you just
recreators.
the recreate so
Content
content
recreators.
recreators, the
Yes.
content regurgitators? All right,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
All right, all right. Yeah, that's interesting because if we keep going the way we're going to where everybody, like I mentioned, is defaulting to AI versus using it as a tool to help you do something, you
Using
still
your
got to be
own
involved to do
brain.
something, right? It'll be like Nica said, it'd be that much easier if it breaks because it will. It's technology. People are
It's
going
going to
into this
break.
thinking that it's always
It's
going to be here.
infallible. Yeah.
Right. It may not always be here, you know. So then
Mm-mm.
what? All right. So that is it for second string. We're gonna move into for the culture. And I wanted to get your take on this. So Keith Sweat was at a concert or at a performance, whatever the case may be. And I don't know if he was on stage. I don't know if he was responding to
I think
something,
it was
but
on stage.
okay. I don't know if he was responding to somebody or he was just had a thought or whatever the case may
I
be.
think he just had a thought.
Okay, so his thought his thought was, and he's directing his thoughts towards women. I don't know if they're in
Mm.
the audience or in general, but let's just say in general. He says on stage, "You got to bring something to the table to get something from me." He's talking to women, like if he's, talking to a woman and she's talking about, whatever the case may be. He's like, "You got
Mm.
to bring something to the table for me. I can't help it. They, meaning women,
Mm.
don't want to cook no more. I wash my own clothes, iron my own clothes. You got to do something for me." Right. So that was his general sentiment of women today. They don't know how to cook. They don't know how to cook. They can't iron. They can't do none of the things. So what value are you to me if you can't do the things that
Labor
I think you
unit.
should be doing? Right. So that's the general sentiment. Right. Of course, the clapback and the responses came in something serious, so much so that he then updates his thoughts via social
Doubling
media.
down.
The double down is, here's his double down. Instead of saying, I want to make sure I understand I love my women and I love my ladies, my black queens, and
Y-
please don't get the impression I'm trying to take y'all back to the Stone Age on the media labor, yada yada. He didn't say none of that. What he said was, y'all tripping. I cook and clean and I don't have to. What's the problem? I said a lot of women don't do that. I didn't say all women. If you don't fit into that category, why y'all tripping? Still love you anyway. Back to doing my dance. So that is his response. So I wanted to ask you, as a single woman that may possibly be in the future entertaining a suitor, how do you feel about Keith Sweat's comments that if a woman can't cook or clean or iron, what good are you?
So, number one, sir, you are 63 years old and you're having these conversations.
Right,
Really? Do better.
right,
Secondly, our society has become so transactional
sure,
that You can't be around, be interested, communicate, have any sort of relationship, whether it's romantic or platonic, without someone expecting you to do labor
Or just
for
want something
them
out of you.
or just want something from you.
Mhm.
That's number 2. Number 3, I will say, when those conversations do come up of what do you bring to the table,
Right.
my response is nothing. I don't bring
Right.
anything to the table. I have nothing for the table,
Right.
and leave it at that,
Mhm.
because this whole concept of you got to be able to do something for me to consider yourself worthy of me. Who are you?
Right.
Who are you?
Right.
And, the flip it, like, what do you bring? And
Right.
it's one of those things where at this big age, people have been living their lives, doing their own things. And
Mhm.
for you to reduce women down to physical
Menial
labor of their
tasks.
bodies,
Not even physical, menial.
right? Because let's be clear, everybody has to eat. If
Right.
you don't have a partner, you're cooking yourself or you're ordering out or you're going somewhere.
Right.
If you have to wash clothes, you need clean clothes. Everybody needs clean clothes.
Mhm.
You're doing the laundry yourself or you're taking to a dry cleaner.
Mhm.
If you got some wrinkled stuff, you busting out the iron and you're doing it yourself, or you're taking it to a dry cleaner to have it pressed. And when he comes back and says, "Well, I do this all myself," then what are you talking about? Why even say it?
Right.
Why
So
even say it? What's the
so
point?
so here's the problem, or here's the explanation, but this is also the problem. Men of Keith Sweat's age, and even these young cats, right?
These young ones are worse too.
They are well. I'm just piggyback on your point. The fact that a woman's worth, a partner, your potential partner's worth to you, to these
Mhm.
cats, Keith Sweat and these young, whatever.
These
It's like
YNs, as I call them.
the only thing you're good for is these things I require.
Mhm.
Not necessarily, and it could be a bevy of things. It could be whatever you require out of a
Mhm.
person. Their worth is only good as the requirements, things you can get out of them. And that's the whole transactional thing. The
Mhm.
problem, and with men and women,
Mhm.
I could understand if Keith Sweat said, man, these women out here, they want you to take them on trips. They want you to buy them a car. They want you to pay their nursing degree. They want you to pay off their college debt. They want me men to do all these things. And you can't even cook. It's like, come on, man, give me something. I could see if you said that. I could even
Mhm.
understand. It's like, okay, people are everybody
You choose to stay
want,
home
and nobody
and
wants to
I go
give.
out and work. So yes, these
Right.
are the
He didn't
things.
even say that. What he is saying
Right.
is, if you can't cook, regardless of what I'm doing,
For
if you
me.
can't cook, if you can't iron my clothes, if you can't cook
Mhm.
for me, like you said,
Mhm.
not necessarily cook for me.
Right.
If you can't iron my clothes, you are no good to
To
me.
me. Yep.
And that is a shame for me. And again, vice versa, right? Women can be the same thing. If my only use of value to you is the money I give you for you to do the things you want to do, you don't hold a lot of value. I don't hold a lot of value personally as a human
Mhm.
to you. And I think that's
Mhm.
what's being lost. We're not viewing each
The
other's as
humanity
the
is being stripped
humanity.
away from
Right.
people.
Right.
And
And
what it
but
boils down to, I think, is, you know, uh, people are complaining about the incels or the lonely man or whatever
mhm,
the thing is.
mhm,
Previously, women, not up until the 70s, women were able to get a mortgage for themselves, have a
right.
credit card for themselves. So
Mhm,
they had to rely on a man. They had to do these things. Even if they didn't want to do it, they
mhm,
had to do it to be able to survive. Now, let some people tell it they want to go back to that. But now black women are the most educated demographic. And women can buy their own homes, their cars. They can, I mean, when me and my friends go out, and we go to a restaurant, it's funny. It's like women only want you to buy their meal. We go out and spend money like drug dealers, as they say.
And
We
then to
are
make matters
ordering
worse,
and buying all the things.
right? They'll see y'all
Mm,
spending your money, right?
mm,
They will prior to complain
yes.
that wait,
You,
let me get they will
you,
complain that all women want to do is take my money, take my money, take my money. They will
mm,
see y'all spending
hmm
money, spending money, spending money. And the first thing they want to do is lead with money.
yeah.
It's like, how are you as a man?
Is it
How are you
Uchawali or
going to
one mic?
how are you going to show women that you are a authentic and kind and caring and
Decent
considerate
person.
and strong and
Yeah.
sensitive and all these things if the first thing out of your mouth is
Money.
let me buy you
What
a
I can
drink,
buy you. What
let
I
me
can
buy you,
get you. Yeah.
because you're telling her that the only value you have
Is money.
is what I can give you.
Get for
So
you.
surprise if a woman then says, oh, all you're worth is money, gimme, 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 and now you're
Yeah.
upset and now you're lonely.
Yeah.
Sir, you should have developed your social skills way before that. Before you found a partner, you didn't develop your social skills. You found a partner, come to find out you ain't got no social skills. She kicked you to the curb. And because you don't have zero social skills, now you don't know how to act in
Yeah.
today's dating world because you
Yeah.
have zero
And
personal.
that's the
Mhm.
thing I don't think men are recognizing, that women see the game now. And it's just like, I love my peace. I love my peace. If you trying to come over here and mess that up, then I'm just gonna stay single, because all the things that you say that you can do for me, which is usually on the monetary side, I can do for myself.
All right. And women and
So
men
if
and
you're
men
not
don't know
bringing
how to
peace into that, you don't know how to
and
laugh or
and they
be
don't know how to
silly.
adjust. Men don't
Yeah,
know how to adjust, and they
they don't
haven't.
know how to adjust.
So,
Yeah. And then they
but this
blame the
is
women for
natural
that.
though. But this is natural because it's going to take time. Because, like you mentioned, women have only started to find their stride
Hmm.
now, right?
And realize they
They
don't
got
have to
the
put up with that.
well, not just that, not even that, not even that. I'm just talking about women's empowerment and
Hmm.
women's empowerment, right?
Hmm.
Just got the right to vote back in the what 40s, I think.
Hmm.
They started getting mortgages, started gaining their autonomy
Hmm.
like right around of the internet age, right? So now they're using all these tools. So now they're at a point to where they're like, "Hey man, I'm figuring this thing out." And I think the men don't want to wait because
Yeah.
this you
Or
gotta
they don't
sit
want to
back.
grow.
Well, true. But even still, though, it's like, we've got to feel each other out and we don't want to
Hmm.
feel each other out at all, men and women, um, uh, uh, people in general. It's just
Hmm.
like you're in the dating pool, as they call it, and they're like, everybody else is the problem. Nobody wants to, like, what can
Take
I do
accountability.
better? What
Yeah.
can I be? How can I be better at this?
Yeah.
How can I not make that same mistake? People
Yeah.
always want to, they go on a bad date and then
They blame
immediately,
everything except for themselves.
right, and not just that, but then they'll post the recap of the date, and it's just like, you mean to tell me the thing that ticked you off was because some little menial trivial thing, and that just messed up the
She
whole
ordered
date.
an old fashioned. Women drinking brown liquor. Oh my God, that's the new thing.
Right,
Women
right,
drinking brown liquor is just like, it's so unladylike. Women ordering a steak. Oh my God, no, you're supposed to want dainty food. These are the
right.
things that they're complaining about. It's just like,
Yep, and I think people in general,
yeah,
like I said, men and women have
yeah,
lost the art of how to socialize with each
yeah,
other just for the sake of being social,
yeah,
and it's not working, and we're quick to blame each other. And
yeah,
this is a Keith Sweat's example is a prime example of somebody not being able to adapt and evolve
yeah,
and want people to be stuck the
yeah.
same way that they're stuck, and
They've always been.
it's
Yeah,
not going to get it for
not
the
gonna work.
men and the women. If you're going out into the dating world with these antiquated, old school, uh, this is what you're supposed to do as a man, this is what you're supposed to do as a woman, it ain't going to work. It's
The rules
not.
have changed, friend.
All
Yes,
right.
they was saying yesterday's price isn't today's price.
Yeah.
Same concept.
Yep. All right. So yeah, I just wanted to vent on that because I think it's so sad, and I see it across the board. And it's
It's
like
so
y'all gonna have
annoying.
to, if y'all want to find your person, you're gonna have to figure out how to
Be better.
choose somebody, not need or want or
Yeah.
require somebody. Y'all picking these people for the wrong reasons, and it's
Yeah.
burning. It's gonna burn you.
Every time.
All right, all
Every
right.
time.
So that's enough of that. We're moving off for the culture. We're moving into the hookup. This goes back to the developer beta of WWDC 25 is now out. If you have or can get a hold of a developer license or go through the hoops to become a Apple developer, you can download the beta developer beta versions of iOS, Mac OS, iPad OS 26 for this coming year.
Mhm.
My hookup is the same as it always is every year.
Mhm.
If you're going to put a beta software on your phone, you have to manually back up your phone to your computer
Mhm.
before installing the beta. If you install the beta first and then try to back up your phone, it's going to back up the OS. What you're
Yeah.
trying to do is you're trying to save a copy of your phone before you updated or downloaded or upgraded to the beta. Because what's going to happen is if you don't like it or if it breaks your phone and you try to restore it from your iCloud, it backs
Mhm.
up the current operating system as well. And the only way you can do that is if you find a older version iOS 18. That stuff is you can't find it over internet like you used to. You used to be
Mm-mm.
able to go and find the versions on the internet and put them back. Apple's they done nixed
Burn
all
you an
that.
image.
Right, right. So basically what you're doing is burning an image of your phone for the beta because
Yeah.
again, like I mentioned, you cannot uninstall a beta OS without you cannot uninstall a beta OS using the cloud backup. It has to be a physical version of the Apple of the version you're trying to downgrade to because the phone, in order for you to restore it, it has to be restored to factory settings and you just can't get that from iCloud. So the only way you can get that restored from backup setting, the factory settings, is to do it on a Mac or a PC using the Finder or the iTunes app. Use the Finder if you're a Mac. Use the iTunes app if you are PC. Back up and archive your phone. Then you upgrade or whatever you want to call it to the beta iOS 26 beta. And then if you don't like it or something happens, you got that copy to
You
go
can
back
roll
to.
back.
Because once you go up, you can't go back without that physical copy. So that's my hookup for the week.
Mhm.
You sound like you had
I
something
was
else to
I
say.
was gonna say, or if you're like me, I never put the beta on my daily driver.
I only put the public betas on there, but even still, this time I think I'm gonna wait. Last time I jumped the gun and put the public beta on there. This time it's like I'm good.
Yeah.
So, but if you are feeling froggy, whether you're putting the public beta or the developer beta, please back up your phone to your computer. Don't
Yeah.
back it up via iCloud. That don't count.
Yeah.
Back it up to your computer before you go messing around with it. So you always have that copy to
Yep.
come
Yep.
back to.
Yep. Yep.
All right,
Don't
so
get
that's
caught
gonna do.
slipping.
Yep. So that's going to do it for this week's show. Nica, what is going on with you?
You can find me at Tech Savvy Diva, and if you're out in these Atlanta streets, you can find me at Atlanta Tech Week, Atlanta Champagne Week, or Render ATL. So I'll be out here.
All right. And you can find me all over the internet at Brother Tech. That's BROTHATECH. To connect, comment, share, and support the show, please go to snoboscast.com to get all those details there. And until next week, we are out. Peace.
Bye, everybody.